Hi everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. It is time for another Make It Monday. My name is Carol and I'm coming to you live from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I've been a card maker for a little over 30 years and my goal is basically just to simply spread joy one card at a time. And I do that by helping people learn how to make cards, kind of tap into that creative side, but also to mail cards. And I certainly know I feel happy when I receive or see somebody getting a homemade, handmade card. And so that's really what my goal is. I am not affiliated with any company or anything like that. I produce these live videos every Monday, giving people an opportunity to learn a technique or a fold or something like that. And like I said, I really just want to help people find that inner creativity and find that joy in making and giving cards one card at a time. I thank you so much for joining me tonight. I am, as I said at the beginning, my whole purpose of making these videos is to help spread that joy and help people find that inner creativity in them. But I'm also focused at this point in using my stash. Just like any hobby or craft that we get into, we end up with huge amounts of stuff. For some people it's fabric, for other people it's rocks, and for me it's lots of paper and ribbons and stamps and things like that. And so I am just encouraging people to tap into your stash and use what you have. I decided last week, in addition to doing that, I'm also going to go back and look at some of the many different techniques that I've learned and share some of those with you. And tonight I am doing one called the Faux Diamond Technique. I will tell you, I did, as you'll see in my hands and stuff, get a little messy in this technique. If you're not one that likes to have glitter, it's not quite glitter, but I do have sparkles all over, probably me as well as my work surface. I've been able to wipe most of it away, but just beware that it might be one that gets you just a teeny bit messy. In terms of the ink on my hands, it's because I was trying to get really fancy with how I was coloring my image, and in the end decided I didn't like it, and I found a much simpler way to do that, which did not involve making a mess of my hands. So what I would like to do tonight is just kind of hop right in. I am making sure I am going live in the right place. There I am. I'm going to share with you what I've learned, share with the techniques. Although my products come from one company, I have done a search, and the ice material that I'm using is definitely available from other crafting supply stores. So anything I show you, you should still be able to get supplies at your preferred vendor or vendors. So hope everybody had a great week. We had just absolutely gorgeous weather here in Minnesota over the weekend. Had my grandkids up and did a quick little Easter hunt because they aren't going to be able to join us next weekend. And that was a lot of fun. And as always, just spending time with those little guys really does my heart good. So that was kind of my weekend. And we also entertained. I got out my fancy china. When was the last time you used your good china? We do a neighborhood game night, and I had neighbors over. We hosted this time, and so I dug out my good china, and that's what we ate our dinner on. It was perhaps not a china-worthy dinner, but it was fun getting out that good stuff. So I would encourage you, not just your paper stash and that type of thing, but dig back into your china cabinet and get some of that good stuff out and have fun using it. All right? Let me go ahead. I'm going to flip my camera over here and get you plugged in. All right. Looks like I got it going that way. And I figure my power should always hold out, but I'm never convinced that that's going to happen. I'm going to see if I can get a little closer here with my camera. You know, sometimes I can make it go bigger, and other times I cannot. And today is going to be one of those times where my camera doesn't want to get bigger. Let me see if I can I'm going to pull it out of my camera stand real quick. All right, I'm not going to waste any more time. We'll make it work. I am getting a message that I do have a slow connection tonight, so I apologize if it's not the clearest, and you just have to pretend like you can't see the mess that's all around my work surface since you get to see so much of it tonight. I usually try to keep that a secret. Okay, so the card that I'm going to show you, like I said, it's called the Faux Diamond Technique, and this is what it looks like. And I'm using, it's either ice or iridescent ice is what the powder is called. And you basically do it very similar to how you would do embossing. So this has a little bit of texture because there is glitter on the card, but it's kind of an all over look. I don't know if you can see the shine as I'm rotating it here. I'll try to hold it up closer so maybe you can see some of the glitter. But this is really how what the end result, a little bit of shine, a little bit of glitter on the card. So that is the sample of the card, and then I am going to be doing one using, just so that you know what products I use. It is a Stampin' Up set for the sea turtle, a Softways embossing folder, and then I used the birthday sentiments from the Beautiful Birthdays collection. So let us go ahead and get started. I have done a little bit of pre-stamping, but I am going to show you how I did my sea turtle because that's kind of the focal point. So we're going to do that first, but then through the magic of all things live, I'm going to be able to quick switch over to my finished product. All right, so the first thing that I did was stamp. One of the unique things with the sea turtle stamp set, you'll see images in gray, and other companies are going to have the similar type of product as Stampin' Up does. But when you see the gray, that means that this is a reverse image. So anytime I stamp these, I can stamp the back side and get a smooth finish. And then when I flip the stamp over, I'm going to get the textured finish that you want. And so I am going to start using my Lost Lagoon, which is the color, and I'm just stamping this on my turtle. Now I kind of wanted like a watercolory look when I did this turtle, and like I said, I tried doing it on a block and stuff, and I just didn't like the look. So I've just got a little mister thing here, and I literally took my mister, and make sure whenever you use one of these, always look to see where it's spraying before you press down. I may or may not have learned a lesson that way. And I just added some water to my block. I'm going to set that down, make sure my work surface is dry, and it feels like it is. This is a photopolymer stamp, so I am going to stamp it on a foam mat. And I'm just going to flip my turtle over and stamp them. Not all of it is going to be evenly colored because of the water that I put on there, and I'm good with that because that's the look that I was going for with my sea turtle here. I need to just clean off my stamp. And this is sometimes, if you don't clean it off real well, this is one area where you might get messy. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with being a dirty stamper, I always say. All right, so this side of the stamp is much more textured because it's kind of the front side of the stamp. And so these details will show up when I start to stamp it. So I'm just doing a mossy meadow, kind of a darker green color. And again, I'm going to just ink up my turtle. This time I did not do the watercolor look because this is going to show through this turtle when I put this one on top of it. So I'm going to try to do this so that you can still see it on the camera. I am just going to set my turtle down, hopefully being fairly aligned. It's kind of hard. I'm going to slide this up, so I apologize if it goes out but it's kind of hard for me to see the whole body to make sure I have it lined up. All right, it's close enough. I know that fin is off just a little bit, but that's okay. You'll get the idea. This gives me the darker look to create the shell and the marks on the turtle. And so that's just how I did my coloring for the particular turtle that I'm going to go ahead and use in my card. I did fussy cut this turtle. There are no dies that I have found that coordinated with it, but it's not that hard to fussy cut. And so in the end, I ended up with a turtle that looked like that. I'm going to save this one because I'm going to be able to do the same thing with that. And so that just gives me a head start on my next project. What I want to show you now is how I obtained this shimmery, glimmery look. And so I do, just because, again, we're dealing with glitter, which, you know, can sometimes get all over the place, I do recommend that you grab a piece of scratch paper just to work on. And it sort of contains your glitter for you. So we'll set that there, set our stamp aside. And then, like I said, what I am using is iridescent ice, but it's also called just ice embossing powder on other places when I Googled it online. So I'm certain that you're going to be able to find it. And then the other thing that you need is a Versamark ink pad, because that's the sticky medium that's going to hold our iridescent ice. Okay, so part of the reason we've got this pad here, or this scratch paper here, is you are literally going to be doing this all over our turtle. Now, I will admit that it probably would be easier if we did this step and then cut the turtle out. But I have found that sometimes you can crack the embossing powder too when you're doing that. So this is my preferred style. You can do as you want. And then I'm simply going to take my embossing powder and shake it all over my turtle. Cover it really good. And then I will carefully pick up my turtle, maybe, and tap it off. And it's going to be pretty coated, pretty powdery. Oops. So I'm just going to set it in there for right now. You saw the glitter just flying when I wipe my hands like that. I do try to put this kind of stuff away right away. For a couple reasons. It prevents me from making an even bigger mess. I don't reuse my paper once I've got glitter on it, so that is going to go right into the trash. But also, when I start heating stuff up, I don't want to have my full jar there to be heated up. And then a little trick that I can share with you is, if you do this on aluminum foil, it may not stick. You don't have to worry about your fingers or anything like that. But if you get the silicone mats that are also available for the inside of ovens, these are heat resistant. And so I've just cut mine up into little pieces, and that is what I'm going to use to put together the heat and the ability to emboss this now that I have, or heat it, I mean, now that I have put it together this way. And that should be sufficient to not burn my work surface, because again, these pads are meant to go in the oven. And so I am going to turn on, and I apologize, we're going to have some noise here, but I'm going to turn my heat gun on to high. I do recommend that you let your gun heat up just for a minute or two. And the reason for that is that it always takes just a little bit to get the heat in there. And you will notice that some of this powder might fly off just a little bit. But now that it's heated, I'm going to just hold this down barely along the edge and hold my heat gun over it. And you can see right away that it's starting to melt. Be very careful because this does get quite hot. And I don't want you to burn your fingers if you move it around. You'll also see that it causes the turtle to buckle just a little bit. But that'll go back down. And so once you have it all, just like any other embossing that you do, once it's all kind of turned the dark color of your ink, you are done. And now what we've got is a beautiful iridescent turtle. I am now going to just set this aside so it can cool. I'm going to wipe off my work surface, and we'll pull out the rest of the pieces that we're going to use. So, and I just realized I stamped my happy birthday sentiment wrong on the inside, so we're going to redo that. I am going to use a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 inch cardstock. I've got it scored at 4 1/4. And so we will be folding that. And whenever you score, you do get an indented line and a line that bumps out. That bumped section is what should go to the inside of the card, with the indentation being on the outside of the card. That's just going to get you a crisper fold when you go ahead and burnish the card. We are going to rotate this card and set it up to go this way. I did emboss a piece of white cardstock. This piece is measuring 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, so I've got just narrow borders. I embossed it with the Soft Waves embossing folder, and then I just used a blending brush and some of my ink to lightly go over it. For some people, you might be bothered that there's kind of these splotches. First of all, you can strategically place your sentiment as well as your eye focal point to cover those blotches. Or if you're like me, I consider those kind of rough spots in the water where the waves didn't quite make it, and it's just stirred up a little bit more or not quite as much, so it creates the different colors that always exist in the water. Maybe that's an excuse, but it sounds darn good to me. I am going to take a little bit of ribbon and wrap it around. And then I am just going to tie a knot. Again, this ribbon is from several years back. So I'm digging into the stash with my stamps, with my ribbons. Pretty much any card that I make, most of that card is going to be stash. I am trying hard not to purchase anything until I have narrowed some of my stash down, and it's kind of fun. You sort of forget some of the things that you have. All right, so I've got this decorated with a bow. I'm now going to come through and take my adhesive. This is a fairly deep impressioned embossing folder, so I am going to do more adhesive than I normally might, simply because I want to make sure that it adheres to my card front. I'll also put a little bit on that ribbon just for a little bit of extra oomph. Don't ask me why. I prefer to have my cards open when I am putting my paper on. For me, it actually helps me see the borders a little bit more. And then my other trick to share with you is look at the opposite corners of your card, and if they are even, then these two corners should be even as well. And I am just going to put that down. I'm going to just give it a gentle rub from the inside of my card, and then I am left with my turtle. And I did fussy cut this turtle out, and then I'm using the Time to Celebrate for the front of my card. And I actually am kind of surprised but how I just threw things on here to show you. I really like how it looks, and so that's how I'm going to leave it. I'm using dimensionals or foam pieces to pop this guy up. I just love sea turtles. I think they're so much fun. Last year I had an opportunity to travel to Hawaii, and we actually found a sea turtle sanctuary not very far from where we were staying. and I was able to go down and visit the turtles every day. It was awesome. I am not one to waste my borders on my foam pieces, and sometimes when I have fins like this, I really like to be able to take a dimensional or foam piece and pop up those fins. And this is a little bit bigger. I don't always use this many dimensionals on my project, but we're going to put one there to kind of support this guy in the center as well. But yeah, it was really a lot of fun. They'd swim in and then climb up on rocks or the beach just to sleep and rest up. So it was pretty phenomenal to be able to see 25 of them at one time, just hanging out on the shore. Okay, got all of those off, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this on. And then I might as well put this up on dimensionals too. I'm going to grab, sorry, I just bumped my camera, some of these mini dimensionals. I did fussy cut around this sentiment as well. And that's just because that's what I decided I wanted to do on this. And you're going to notice that when I cut it, I got a little bit too close to the O on the 2. Honestly, for me, I used to try to always make my cards perfect. And if I had continued down that path, the odds of me ever being able to get a card out because it wasn't quite perfect would never happen. And so I have learned to overlook most of my little things like that. It's a unique card. It's what makes it homemade. And I've just learned to embrace it. If you're a perfectionist and you can't do that, that's fine. That's what's cool about card making, is we can each do what we want and what works for us. But if you're not such a perfectionist, or you're finding it's getting hard for you to get any cards done, cut yourself some grace and feel free to send a slightly less than perfect card out there. 99.9% of your people are not going to notice that that even exists. And it works for me. That's just my little thought for the day. All right, I am going to restamp the happy birthday sentiment because, as I said, I originally did it the wrong way. Whenever I'm putting sentiments onto my block, I will lay them flat onto my working surface and attach the block to them. I have found that that, for the most part, keeps, especially these narrow ones, straight instead of being slightly curved perhaps when I go to put it on the put it on and do a sentiment. If I don't do it that way, I'm going to ink this up. I'm just using a black Memento ink. Sometimes I get fancy and do all the colors on the inside. Tonight I am not. And happy birthday. That is what I'm going to say. And you know, that still looks a little, despite what I just told you, it looks like it's going uphill a little bit. That's where my perfectionism kind of gets in the way, is I struggle with really crooked sentiments. And now I've just created a very nice piece of white scrap that I can die cut other stuff out of. And we will try this one more time. I'm going to put it on my work surface and block it up. Hopefully this time it's better. We'll ink it up. I'm curious what other people's I can't let that pass things are. For me, it's really crooked. That's much better. Sentiments. All right. And then we are simply going to add this to the inside of our card. And because this is just a flat sheet of paper, I can go ahead and put it like this. Now, I also want to embellish, even though we got lots of sparkle on this card and a little bit of ribbon. One of my favorite products that I purchased, in fact, I like it so much, I bought more of them so that I would have them for quite some time. And these are kind of like sea glass. I just have to find them. I should have had them out, but I will tell you what, I just thought about it as I was stamping. And so sometimes we get inspiration as we're working on projects. Just give me a minute, I'll find them. And they come in just the right colors, I think, for what I'm working with on here too. Here we go. It's called Faux Sea Glass. So we're using faux diamonds. We might as well use some faux sea glass too, right? All right. But I really like these. I like them because none of them are the same shape. There's smaller ones and slightly larger ones, but really none of them are the same shape. And I think this blue will work very well with what I'm doing. It's kind of a blue-green. And what the heck, I used some of the green in my color for my turtle, so we're going to go like that and just add a little bit. So this card, with the exception of my, well, really all of this card is made with items that are from my stash, from the paper to my ribbon to the ice to the little embellishments here. So I hope this card has inspired you to give this a try. It's kind of holographic. I think it would be fun to do some birthday projects with this too. I know from the camera you can see the shine and the shimmer. It just gives it a really cool sparkly look, and is kind of like diamonds or fresh snow the way that it sparkles. Hopefully you can see some of that on the camera. It's a different look than when you do just clear embossing powder, because it's not smooth. If you touch it, it is rough, and that's because of the glitter that's in there. But it does give it a shine and a sparkle, just in a slightly different way. But the technique is basically just like you would use if you were doing embossing powder. So here are, again, my two examples. One is a very basic image that I stamped and then just covered with the powder. This one, again, I stamped, but instead of making it square rectangle, I just did that circle look. So I hope you enjoyed these cards, and if you decide to give this a try, feel free to post your card in the comment section. I think that we can help each other find our creativity by sharing our ideas. And if you're not comfortable doing that, that's fine too. But I do appreciate you taking time to watch my video tonight, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye.